Get ready for immediate action. As soon as Donald Trump takes office, a new mass deportation plan is going to shake up the United States. Find out how this will impact public safety right from day one.
CNN's Priscilla Alvarez points out in some reporting tonight that some of Trump's deportation plans are Obama-esque. His predecessor, of course, deported nearly 3 million people in his first term, compared to the 1.5 million that Trump deported in his first term. The man who served as Obama's ICE director is the same person Trump has tapped to be his border czar. And Tom Homan is my source and joins me tonight. And Mr. Homan, it's great to have you. Thank you for being here on the program tonight, because we are closing in on the inauguration. So when it comes to this major campaign promise, you've been working on that plan. Is the plan done and ready to go at this point?
No, I'm still working on it. I got the general framework written up, and I'm working with other folks on it. But by the time the inauguration happens, the plan will be baked, and we'll be ready to launch the day of the inauguration.
How much of it would you say is done so far? What does that process look like?
Well, look, I'm looking at the number of people that were released in the United States by this administration. I'm looking at how many of aliens have been already deported by the Immigration Court, how many are out on ATD that have orders, how many are currently in detention that have orders, and looking at what the time level of some of the hearings are going to be in certain jurisdictions of the country. How many criminal aliens? We know there's over 700,000 illegal aliens with criminal convictions on the streets of this country. So that'll, of course, be a priority. So I'm looking at a lot of different data sets to figure out where and when and how we're going to do this.
So how many days after Trump is sworn in before this effort to carry out the mass deportations begins? I know you said it starts on day one, but after how many days will we actually start to see that happening?
Day one. Day one will be ICE officers across the country will be out on the streets. Right out of the gate, President's made it clear, and I've made it clear, the priority right out of the gate is public safety threats and national security threats. And there's plenty of them to find, right? I looked at the data under the Biden administration. The deportation of criminal aliens have decreased 74%. So we have all those folks that the Biden administration failed to deport, plus we got this over 10 million encounters on the southern border that they came across. We got a lot of them to look for, too. So the public safety threats are plenty, and it's going to keep us busy.
You worked under President Obama, as I noted. He actually gave you the government's highest civil service award at one point in your time there. As you know, he deported a lot of people. His highest number was just over 400,000 in a year. How many do you expect to deport this time?
I don't know the answer to that question because I'm not in the administration. I mean, we don't have control. I don't know what the budget is. I don't know how many. For instance, I know that ICE is $300 million in the hole right now. We need Congress to give us the money to get this done because I don't know how many resources I have. I don't know how much money I'm going to have to buy beds. I don't know how much money I'm going to have to buy transportation contracts. That's why it's imperative on Congress and reconciliation to give us money we need to do this. I think the mandate given by the American people from the election is they want this done. A majority of Americans think it's the right thing to do. A vast majority of Americans think public safety threats are here illegally should be removed. So it all depends on the funding I get from the Hill.
So you haven't gotten any briefings from people at the Department of Homeland Security right now to tell you what that looks like as far as the number of ICE agents or the number of beds available to you?
No, I know the current number of beds available. I know how many agents are out there right now, but I'm looking, we need many more detention beds what are currently available. I mean, on the Trump administration, we had over 55,000 people in detention in any given day, and they're down to less than 30,000 now. So I know there's a certain amount of beds that are available, but we're going to need many more beds. The landing teams have just started working with the agencies and departments, so we'll be gathering information, a lot of information next couple of weeks, which will help me in my planning process.
How many more beds do you think you'll need?
And with Tom Roman, a veteran of border security, leading the effort, we can expect a firm and determined approach to tackle threats to national security. Everything that the Biden administration has neglected. But now the question remains, will Congress support this crucial mission? Only time will tell. It's time to get serious about national security and expect what's coming.
We need at least 100,000 beds. And because of beds will turn over within 30 days, which gives us a free bed every day. But I'm not going to put a limit on it. I'm talking the minimum we need 100,000 beds because we got a big population to look for. And you 700,000 criminals alone.
And ICE has about 6,000 deportation officers nationwide. Tell me if that number is different than the numbers that I looked into. How many more deportation officers do you believe that you would need for what you want to carry out here?
Look, the bottom line is the more I got, the more I can do. So it's just over 6,000 ERO officers. Well, let's remember you got over 8,000 HSI officers who are also ICE officers who also have Title 8 authority, immigration authority. We're looking for help from other agencies. We're looking for help, and I've been clear on this. I'd like to see DOD assist us. DOD has assisted just about every presidential administration, so DOD could be a force multiplier. Men and women of ICE that carry a badge and gun that are doing administrative duties like processing and transportation and infrastructure building. If we can get DOD to help us, that frees those badge and guns up to get to the street to arrest the bad guys. So it all depends what I have available day one, and we're working on that now.
And will you ask the military for planes to help with those flights as well?
Absolutely. I'll ask them for help in transportation on ground and in the air. They have a lot of planes. And, I think this is, I think what's happened on our southern border in the last 4 years is the biggest national security vulnerability this country's seen. Even the FBI director agrees with that. So I think DOD has a perfect role in protecting national security. Now, they're not going to be out arresting people, but they can be a force multiplier in doing things that we need them to do that doesn't require a badge and a gun.
Okay, you say they won't be out arresting people. That's an important point. On this effort overall, in terms of what you believe you need, and you're obviously deeply familiar with how this works and what's ahead of you, you had previously said about $86 billion was the minimum this project will cost. Do you have a better estimate now as you've been developing your plan?
I never said 86 billion. That was a CNN reporter that said 86 billion. I don't know what that number is right now. Again, we're working on the plan. Again, it depends on how many resources I have and what the cost is going to be. But I'll say this. 86 billion. I mean, what price you put on the young women that have been murdered and raped in this country? What price you put on, the lives of all these little girls that, there's numerous cases. What price you put on national security? Because we know a record number of people on terrorist watch that's been called on the southern border. We also know there's over 2.2 million gotaways. How many of them came from countries sponsoring terror? What price you put on the thousands of angel moms and dads who their children were buried by their parents because their children were killed by someone that's not supposed to be here? There's a lot of cost back. But let me say this. This will be an expensive operation, but in the long run, it would be a huge tax savings on American people, because right now they're spending billions of dollars on free airline tickets, free hotel rooms, free medical care. Not talking about our education system, our trauma and hospitals, and that's in perpetuity. And that's in perpetuity.
Here the question is clear: how many resources are we willing to invest to ensure the security of our nation? Tom Roman, for example, emphasizes the need for 100,000 detention beds and also military support to make a real impact. And about the cost, let me ask, how much is the safety of our family and our children worth? Get ready, because we're going to talk about the hard truths about migration.
I understand you'll be making that argument about why you need this money to Congress. I was just curious how much you're guessing it'll cost, because obviously, as you noted, it's going to be expensive. You're going to have to ask Congress for that money. I believe you had told Fox Business $86 billion was the estimate.
$86 billion at a minimum, I said. That's a minimum.
Okay, I was just quoting you. I just want to make sure that we're clear that I was quoting you correctly on what the baseline of that was. But I think the question...
You were quoting me directly. You were quoting me directly. There was also a question that was asked by a CNN reporter.
Okay, got it. Yeah, obviously this is a huge interest. It's a huge interest to people just in terms of how much it'll cost. But on the numbers, I am curious what your target is, because there are different estimates of how many undocumented immigrants are in the country and you have said everyone is on the table. If it's 11 million people and what that number looks like, what is your goal over the 4 years of the total number of people that you would like to? If you have the number of beds that you would like, if you have the number of ICE deportation officers and others that can help you with that, what is your ultimate number of that deportation that you would like to see when you're done with your job?
I don't have a number. We want to arrest as many people as we can that are in the country illegally, again, based on prioritization. We want to arrest every criminal, every gang member that's here illegally that's a public safety threat. We want to arrest every fugitive, those who had due process at great taxpayer expense and have an ordered deportation but didn't leave and became a fugitive. We got over 1.5 million of those. And look, we got millions of people here illegally. I've said that if you're here illegally, you're not off the table. I mean, it's a violation of law. It's a crime to enter this country illegally. And after we give you
but
due
you don't
process,
have a number that you'd like to see 1 year from tonight. You don't have a number that you'd like to say, this many people have been deported on my watch.
No, I don't have a number. I want to arrest as many people as we can with the resources we have. Want to be the most efficient we can based on prioritization. There's no limit.
And we are back now with President-elect Donald Trump's pick for his border czar, Tom Homan. And Mr. Homan, welcome back. Thank you for being here. You just talked about who you were going to be targeting initially when you take office. You talked about people who are a public safety threat or a national security threat. And you said that everyone, though, is on the table if they are here in the country illegally. As you know, there's a lot of mixed status households in the United States. Do you plan to take both parents into custody if there are minor children in the house?
If you're in the country illegally and you got order of deportation, we're going to arrest you, we're going to detain you, we're going to remove you. If they have a U.S. citizen child, if they chose after they come to the country illegally, and chose after been ordered removed to have a U.S. citizen child, and think that, okay, the court order doesn't mean anything anymore, the removal order doesn't mean anything anymore, then what kind of message we send into the whole world? Go ahead and cross the border illegally, which is a crime. Ignore a judge's order of deportation, but have a baby, and you're fine. If we do that, then shut down the immigration court because the orders don't mean anything anymore, and take the border patrol off the border. We can't send a message to the whole world that you can violate laws of this country and not leave as required by judge and have a U.S. citizen child. You're okay. That child can stay. They can stay with a relative. They can stay with the other parent, or they can take them with them. We don't deport U.S. citizens, but they put themselves in the position. We didn't.
Would the kids go, if both parents, though, are deported, would you put the children in foster care if there's not a relative? Child Protective Services, what does that look like?
Tom Roman makes it clear being in the United States illegally is no joke. The focus is on threats and security. No one is off the table. Let's see what this means for the millions of illegal immigrants. Illegal immigration and industry. It's really at stake. Discover now.
Well, that's up to the parent. I call that parenting 101. It's up to the parent what they want to do. That's their child. But the bottom line is having a child in this country does not make you immune from our laws. If that's the message we send to the rest of the world, you're never going to solve the best way forces.
What would you be asking ICE agents to do in that scenario?
To arrest and deport people who are ordered to remove by a federal judge. That's what they're going to do. The parents can make the decision on their child. That's their decision.
So when you argued recently about, when you were asked about family separation, you said families can be deported together. That's how you would avoid that. I mean, you're saying that U.S. citizen, that U.S.-born child would have the choice to either go with their parents or to stay here in the United States without their parents.
That's a decision of the parents. And again, we can't send a message to the whole world that you can circumvent our laws by simply having a U.S. citizen child when you know you're here illegally. They made that decision. They put their families in that position, not us. We're going to enforce the laws enacted by Congress and signed by the president. If people don't like the laws, they can certainly have the laws changed by Congress. But we're going to do what the American people want us to do, enforce the laws enacted by Congress and what Congress funds us to do.
And obviously, this could be a reality that you are facing in just a few weeks or a few months from now. The other question that I've heard so much about this is the massive impact that these large removals could have on the construction or agriculture or hospitality industry. Is that something that you're keeping in mind as you're making these plans?
Yeah, that'd be part of the prioritization, but let's remember it's illegal to hire an illegal alien employee, illegal alien, because there are a number of reasons. Undercuts wages. People hire an illegal alien for a couple of reasons. Number one, they can work them harder, pay them less, and undercut their competition who has U.S. citizen employees. It's against the law to hire an illegal alien, and we'll be enforcing that law too, because Worksite enforcement's coming back. Where do I find most victims of trafficking? Sex trafficking and forced labor at work sites. And this administration stopped that. So if we're serious about human trafficking, both forced labor and forced sex trafficking, that's where we find the victims. That's where we save the victims. So worksite enforcement is coming back in a big way.
Yeah, the worksite raids. And of course, I mean, you've seen in areas like Wisconsin, dairy farms have a lot of undocumented immigrants on their property who are working there. So that was a big question for them. The other question I had for you is that the president-elect said recently that he believes still, not a new position for him, but he believes that birthright citizenship must end. Obviously, that is no easy feat, given it is enshrined in the Constitution. But will he or anyone in his orbit direct immigration officials to stop giving out documents like passports or Social Security cards to babies who are born on U.S. soil, to parents who aren't documented?
Look, I think that's up to the courts. I think it needs to be held by the Supreme Court. I kind of disagree with you. I don't think it's enshrined in the Constitution at all, not the way I read it. But then again, I'm not a constitutional scholar. We'll let the courts decide that on the birthright citizenship. I'll say this. It's a major driver, a major magnet for illegal immigration. And under this administration, you got a record number of illegal aliens that dying crossing the border. You got a record number of Americans dying from fentanyl coming across that border. You got a 600% increase in sex trafficking. So we got to stop these magnets. We got to stop rewarding illegal behavior, because that's exactly what we're doing.
Yeah, of course, it's the 14th Amendment, as you know. I do have a question on what this looks like, because one thing I've heard you say repeatedly is mass deportations doesn't mean tanks going down streets or huge sweeping raids. I think of what a lot of people might have in mind. Building concentration camps is, quote, ridiculous. We have heard other people talk about large staging facilities, Stephen Miller, for example, who you'll be working with. On this and what this looks like when it's carried out, do you have any red lines of where you do not want to go to carry out the pledge to deport mass amounts of people?
Look, this operates. Me and Steve Miller, there was no daylight between me and Steve Miller. He was the architect of some of the most significant successful border policies in the history of this nation. President Trump had unprecedented success during his first administration. But look, we're going to build detention facilities because, again, this is a massive deportation operation. Let me explain why it's a massive deportation operation. Millions of people enter this country illegally, claiming asylum. Secretary Mayorkas has said under oath numerous times, for those who don't qualify for asylum, they'd be immediately removed. Of course, he didn't do it, so we're going to do it. But people need to understand, the people come to the border to claim asylum. Based on immigration court data last decade, 9 out of 10, nearly 9 out of 10 people claim asylum will get an order removal. So when they lose that case, we'll give them the due process. They can make an asylum claim. We'll take them to a judge. But when a judge says they're leaving, they have to leave, because if we don't, like I said, then what the hell are we doing? Just shut down the immigration court. It doesn't mean anything anymore, and take the border patrol off the border because there's no consequences. We're going to enforce the law, and to do that, we're going to have teams out throughout the country arresting these targets. We got to build detention facilities to hold these people, so we're going to remove them. But there will be a well-targeted enforcement operation.
Well-targeted enforcement operation. And you said that starts on day one that Trump takes office. I do want...
The strict enforcement of labor laws is making a comeback. This could impact sectors like agriculture and hospitality, but it's a necessary step to protect workers and put an end to exploitation. Are you ready for a drastic change in immigration policy? These bold plans could transform security at the U.S. borders. Check everything. The end of this interview.
I want to just revisit, though, if you want to carry out this mass deportation and you want to start it on day one, just about a little over a month from now, but you don't have a target number in mind, how does that, can you explain how that works to me?
The target number is arresting as many people as we can possibly arrest with the resources I have. So, for instance, I've already discussed, we got over 700,000 illegal aliens in this country with a criminal conviction. They're priority one. These criminal gangs like Tren de Agua and MS-13, they're a priority. National security threats, they're a priority. So the goal is for the ICE officers and other agencies who's going to assist them to arrest as many targeted priority aliens as possible. Here's the problem, though. In sanctuary cities, we can't arrest a criminal in the jail because they won't let us in the jail. So that forces us to go to the neighborhood, which means instead of one agent arresting a bad guy in the jail, we got to send a whole team to the neighborhood. And what happens there? We're going to find others that are non-priority criminals. But guess what? They're going to be arrested too, because immigration officers aren't going to be told to walk away from somebody here illegally like this Biden administration has done. So sanctuary city is going to get exactly what they don't want. You don't want to arrest a bad guy in the safety and security of the jail. Okay, put ICE officers at great risk to go in the community to arrest this person who has access to what weapons, and they're going to end up arresting more collateral arrests because they have forces in the community.
That 700,000 number, are you confident that you'll be able to deport all of those people?
That's my goal.
But are you confident you'll be able to complete that goal?
I'm confident in the men and women of ICE. They're very good at this, and we're going to arrest as many criminals and gang members as we can find. If we can't find them tomorrow, we'll find them the next day. This operation isn't going to stop. We got 4 years to do this operation, and we'll continue our focus on those with public safety threats, national security threats, then fugitives, then the rest of the people who are not off the table. If you're in the country legally, you got a problem. And I would ask people, if you're in the country legally, you don't have a deportation order yet, then leave voluntarily, because if we have to be forced to issue a deportation, the court actually gives a deportation order, and we have to formally remove you, that puts a bar, a 5 to 20-year bar. You can't re-enter the country. You can't re-enter the country on a visitor visa, a tourist visa. You can have a U.S. citizen petition for you. The smart thing to do, if you haven't got a removal order in the country legally, is leave on your own. That saves a lot of hurt and a lot of harm.
As you saw, Tom Homan is determined to enforce the law strictly, starting a mass deportation from day one of his administration, focusing on criminals and security threats. The message is clear. Those who are in the United States illegally should reconsider their stay or face severe consequences. Check out how this operation could redefine immigration in the country. Subscribe to the channel, share the video, and turn on the notification bell so you can follow historic operation. Leave your comment below. And what did you all think of these bold plans? Don't forget to comment. Thank you all very much. Until our next video,